In this box is the Acer Chromebook Spin 312, a Chromebook that launched at the end of last year. And being part of Acer's 3 series, it means it's an entry-level to mid-range Chromebook. And being a Spin means it's convertible, so of course has a touchscreen. In the UK right now for around £200, that's about $250 US, you can pick up the model spec I have here on sale. It's got the Intel N100 processor, 4GB of low-power DDR5 RAM, and 64GB of eMMC storage. But in the US, for example, there's a higher spec model with the Intel Core i3-N305 processor, 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, and that's on sale currently for just $299, around £240 British. This one is a loan unit supplied to me for review by Acer UK, but as usual, all the views are my own. Let's get into the unboxing and take a look. So on the right hand side, we'll start with the USB-C charger. And just before we look at the charger itself, you can see we've got more of that reusable packaging. A bit like we saw on the Acer Chromebook 311 last year, so the packaging that surrounds the charger can be turned into a laptop stand. So just a neat idea from Acer there to make this a bit more environmentally friendly. The power brick itself is a 65-watt charger, so that should help support faster charging of the Chromebook. And of course, I've got the British wall plug with this one. Let's get into the Chromebook itself, so neatly packaged up here. Move the box out the way. The only other thing to see in here is the usual bit of paperwork that you're probably not going to read, quite a bit inside there. Let's get the box out the way and get into the Chromebook. So we'll just pop it out of the protective sleeve. I'm just going to remove that protection from inside the keyboard deck, but we'll of course come back to look at inside the Chromebook in detail in just a minute. So Acer lists the colour as sparkly silver, but it looks like the same silver we've seen their other 3 series Chromebooks come in. Size-wise, this one has a 12.2-inch display and it's in that taller 16:10 aspect ratio, so it's going to be better for productivity, but overall has a slightly more square look to it. And for build materials and quality, so yeah, it is a full plastic build. No flex at all in it here, though it feels really solid, well put together, and does feel like it carries a little bit of weight, so I'll flash up on screen exactly what it's weighing in at for me now. So that weight is coming in slightly heavier than the 12.2-inch Lenovo Flex 3i that I showed on the channel at the end of 2023. That one has a similar spec in terms of its options, and again, it's mainly dependent on your region, but it's definitely worth checking out. I'll link my video on that one at the end of this one. So taking a look at ports and connectivity, and starting here on the left, you've got a USB-C port for power data and display out. You've got a full-size USB-A port, a 3.5mm headphone microphone combo jack, and the physical power button with a built-in LED. This slot on the far right side is related to the speakers, which are on the bottom of the Chromebook. I'll show those to you in just a bit. Over on the right side here, starting on the left, there's a physical volume rocker button. There's a second full-size USB-A port, an HDMI port version 1.4, and a Kensington Nano port to allow these to be locked down in a classroom or similar. For wireless connectivity, it's Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2. Taking a look at the bottom of the Chromebook, there is a ventilation grill there for the processor. So I'm not expecting this version with the Intel N100 to need a fan, but the version we've seen in the US spec with the Core i3-N305 should need a fan, like we've seen in other Chromebooks with that processor. As mentioned earlier, you've also got the speakers on the bottom, so you've got that grill on the front right corner, and it's sort of wrapping round, as I showed you, to the right-hand side of the Chromebook. And of course, over on the left, it's going to mirror that in the same way. So you've got that bottom grill for the speaker there, and then you've got that kind of side grill for it as well to hopefully just improve the sound quality a little bit. Again, very similar to what we've seen on the 2024 Acer Chromebook 311. Okay, so let's open up the Chromebook and take a look inside. So being the Spin version, of course, I can flip the screen all the way back onto the rear of the Chromebook. So just to give you an impression of how that looks when it's open in this tablet mode. Okay, and then let's take a look at the keyboard deck itself. Okay, so the key travel feels very familiar if you've ever used another 3 series Acer Chromebook. So you've got that slightly more medium to deeper travel. Very consistent across the keys, quite nice and quiet as well. The Ocean Glass branded touchpad feeling really smooth as expected. No looseness to it, nice for clicks, taps and gestures. And being Ocean Glass branded, again, that doesn't mean it's made of glass, it's made of ocean-bound plastics. I'm going to get the Spin 312 set up with my test user now so I can take you through more on the overall spec and options, and in particular this display. So now I'm set up with my test user. Just to recap the main spec, for the processor I've got the Intel N100 here, but whether you have that or the Core i3-N305 like we've seen in the US spec model, it still means ChromeOS updates all the way through to June 2033. For RAM, I've got 4GB of low-power DDR5 RAM, but there's options for 8GB too, like the most common spec in the US. And for storage, I've got 64GB of eMMC storage, but again, that higher spec in the US offers 128GB. Even at that higher spec, you won't see a Chromebook Plus version of this Spin 312, as we've seen in the past with Chromebooks like the 2024 Acer Chromebook 314 that met the hardware requirements. Acer still reserves the Chromebook Plus status for their 5 and 7 series Chromebooks. Checking out the touch display, it's a 12.2-inch display coated in Gorilla Glass. It runs a WUXGA resolution, so 1920 by 1080. I've bumped it up to that, as out of the box it was running at 1200 by 750 as its default. It's IPS, it's in this taller 16 by 10 aspect ratio, so great for productivity. Acer claim a brightness of up to 300 nits, but I do wonder if that applies to the higher spec model with that Core i3-N305. The display also has more of a gloss finish. The touch display on this one doesn't look to support a stylus, but models with that higher spec processor look like they do. The bezel appearance is okay, with the top and bottom being fairly uniform in size and the two sides being similar, that little bit thinner. Acer claim it's almost a 76% screen to body ratio. Up at the top of the display you'll find the webcam with the privacy slider. On this UK model with the N100 processor it's just a HD webcam, but on the higher spec, as we've seen in the US, they get a full HD webcam. Testing out a bit of gaming here, and the Spin 312 is happy enough running Real Racing 3. Link to performance, we'll see how the 50 watt-hour battery holds up in the full review. Subscribe if you want to see that. Do comment below with anything else you'd like to know about this one. And if you want to see what I view as the direct competitor to this Acer Chromebook Spin 312, click the video on the left now to watch that next. Otherwise, the YouTube algorithm thinks you're going to like the video on the right. Cheers.